When Apple released a high-performing laptop for around $500, the entry-level hardware market was completely thrown off balance. The MacBook Neo offered a level of build quality and speed that left Windows manufacturers scrambling for an answer at that price point. That is, until Dell announced the new entry-level XPS 13, the very first legitimate Windows counterpunch to hit this specific budget tier. This matrix compares 8GB base models, the Dell XPS 13 at $700 or $600 for students, against the MacBook Neo at $600 or $500 for students. Both ditch stamped plastic for machined metal. The XPS is slim, while the Neo relies on a thicker frame. Operating system preferences usually take a back seat to the physical limitations found at this price. Every machine under $700 requires a compromise. Success means identifying which specific hardware bottleneck your daily workflow can actually handle. Let's start with the physical experience of sitting in front of the device, where Dell takes an immediate lead on the display. Look at the color accuracy on the XPS. It is measurably better than the Neo, and it pushes those colors closer to the edges with noticeably thinner bezels. It also features a 120 Hz refresh rate. You aren't going to be playing demanding 3D games on an 8GB machine, but that faster refresh rate makes basic Windows UI animations and scrolling feel incredibly smooth. The MacBook Neo sits slightly behind here, with a standard 60 Hz screen that is dimmer and lacks that same fluid animation. The gap widens when typing. This highlights a scenario students and travelers face constantly, working in a dim lecture hall or on a dark airplane, relying entirely on the XPS 13's backlit keyboard. Apple intentionally left the keyboard backlight off the Neo. That means you have to physically angle your screen down just to find the volume or brightness keys in the dark. For pure tactile productivity, the XPS 13 wins on these features, even if the Neo's beefier frame is better equipped for the occasional drop. The physical design points heavily toward Dell, but the internal peripherals tell a very different story. On paper, the XPS 13 features 4 internal speakers, which should easily beat the Neo's 2 speakers. Looking at this media hardware scorecard, the XPS falls flat. Despite doubling the speakers, the Dell sounds significantly worse. The issues extend to video output, where the XPS webcam and microphone drastically underperform compared to the Neo. If you rely on daily virtual meetings, your voice and video will be noticeably muffled and grainy on the Dell. You essentially have to accept that getting the XPS's excellent backlit keyboard means your professional calls will suffer, requiring you to buy external gear if you want clear communication. Inside, the XPS is running Intel's new Core 5 3020 processor. For light computing tasks like browsing, checking your email, or typing a document, both of these machines run flawlessly. But 8GB of RAM is a hard limit when you push the system by running a video editor, several background apps, and dozens of browser tabs simultaneously. This diagram illustrates RAM swapping. When fast physical memory fills completely, the operating system borrows space on your slower storage drive. macOS handles this process fluidly, remaining highly responsive during unrealistic workflows. Windows 11 on the XPS 13 struggles to manage that same memory limitation. If you push the machine, you will experience noticeable hiccups and lag. And if you are trying to edit video on the Dell, you will immediately notice what's missing here. The XPS 13 completely lacks a headphone audio jack. You are forced to use Bluetooth audio. That introduces milliseconds of wireless lag, making precision video editing impossible unless you buy a USB-C adapter and sacrifice a port. Neither of these are professional editing rigs, but the Neo's seamless memory management and flawless audio sync make it the only realistic 8GB option for entry-level creators. When you hit those memory limits on the Dell, your first instinct is usually to solve the problem by upgrading the RAM. This quadrant chart plots the problem with Dell's variable pricing. Adding memory instantly pushes the machine out of the budget tier. The moment you configure the XPS with more RAM, the price spikes into the $1,000 range, drastically lowering your return on investment. Once you enter that premium price bracket, you are no longer comparing the XPS against a $600 Neo. You are competing against higher-tier MacBook Airs and Pros, where the XPS hardware is entirely outclassed. The XPS 13 is only a smart financial investment if you buy it strictly at the base-level promotional price. Your final choice comes down to mapping the physical hardware directly to the environment where you actually work. First flowchart note, is your budget under $700? Check your workspace. Typing in dark environments or wanting a smooth 120Hz screen maps to the XPS 13. But remote workers needing daily Zoom calls and precise editing audio require the MacBook Neo. If the Dell fits your workflow, act before the current entry-level promotional pricing expires. Navigating the budget laptop market means accurately admitting which hardware compromises you can comfortably tolerate in your daily life.